Hey everyone.
Hey guys! We just had an argument.
We did. It was a pretty big one.
It's ironic.
It is very ironic because today we are going to be talking about arguments. Before we get started though, I wanted to talk about this right here. With us having so much time on our hands, we around the house we'll try to find stuff to do, and the other day we were playing tag around the island in our kitchen. I was running around it and then I ran back around to try to get Maria and then she sprung forward and I sprung back around the corner and slammed my head against the wall. Wow, was it painful.
It was.
So,
he was almost crying.
yeah. I definitely cried.
So we posted on our Instagram that we were going to do some videos about relationship topics, and someone asked us, how do we deal with arguments?
Yep.
And we talked about it, reflected on it, and decided to do this video, and we had an argument in the process, which made us feel horrible, because Daniel was like, I'm a hypocrite!
It's weird because it's such a touchy subject for a lot of people. You start thinking that you have to be perfect in order to be able to talk about that topic. So it took a lot of determination to try to work out an argument together, but we can both tell you that it can be done.
Well, that's true, because like our life isn't perfect. Like, we will have things we disagree with. We'll have different days with different energy levels, different expectations, different insecurities from our past. Like, I feel like I've learned so much during these 6 months that we've been married about myself.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I've been growing so much because this guy challenges me.
Yeah, and I've been learning so much more about you. She pushes me to be a better person, and helps me to understand herself more. And it's crazy how, like, when you live together with someone, it really challenges you, pushes you to work on these things together. Because we all know that any marriage is going to have arguments. Why do we think that we can live together and have our own issues and our own insecurities and not learn more about each other and learn how to solve these things?
Our society perpetuates this mindset of divorce as an easy fix. Like, you don't make me happy anymore, so you're disposable. It's a very consumerism.
Yeah.
What's the
Consumerism.
word? Yeah.
And fast food thinking.
Yes, exactly.
And then, I mean, there are a lot of traditional marriages and homes where, they've been together all their life. And yet still, they have been dealing with this person and dealing with them and dealing with them. And, like, finally, they just can't have they can't do it anymore. Not only are we dealing with this fast food mentality, but also just the struggles of every day. Just, they pile up. At some point, you may not even know, but your spouse could end up leaving you. And why do we have to have that fear? Like, there's no point in having to have a full life with a spouse and then end up losing them. Even in the Christian community, like pastors and missionaries, but people of all ages, people of all beliefs and values.
There are families that grow apart even being together. Like, they don't get a divorce but they live in separate rooms. They don't have anything in common. They don't share meals together. They just basically two roommates. They become roommates after years of living together, which is another way of splitting up, I believe.
Yeah.
They don't walk in unity.
Mhm.
So we are only 6 months together, but we do understand. Like, you don't have to, like, I don't know, drink to know that alcoholism is bad. You don't have to smoke and use drugs to know that it can damage your health. And you don't have to live a whole lifetime of brokenness to understand brokenness.
Mhm.
And we noticed that we had in our arguments how we're dealing with that, all the things that surface within us, and we decided to talk to everybody that wants to listen about it, because it might actually help someone, because we've been learning a lot how to deal with those situations, and we would love to help you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you solve an argument with your partner?
Well, to start, we have to understand why do they start even. So we thought about 4 types of things that can trigger arguments. The first one is obvious, is difference of opinion. And that can go anywhere from I like pink, I like pink,
And I like blue.
and you like blue.
So like whenever we're choosing, bedding or an item in the house, like, what color are we going to get? Pink, blue, or white. So that's
Exactly.
that's why we got a lot of white
Yeah,
stuff.
we get a lot of white stuff, we get a lot of gray stuff. So
That's not why we chose that color. We like white.
We both love it. So that's called compromise.
Mhm.
So difference of opinion can be treated very easily with compromise. So I put it first because it's the easiest one, it's the obvious one. And it's something that you can actually have arguments with anybody outside your home. Usually, those are the arguments that happen in debates, in parties, political difference of opinions. It's something you believe in and the other doesn't. You can have difference of opinions, but you always can reach a compromise by choosing something you both like.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to have a mindset and humbleness to agree on wanting to compromise, of course. But I feel like this is something that most of people know how to do.
Yeah. It's not always such a struggle to get through a difference of opinion.
It can pile up sometimes.
Yeah, it can. Just because you have a difference of opinion doesn't mean that you're unequally yoked. But if you're talking about their values or their beliefs, I mean, it could get really deep. If they have a difference of opinion in their belief, then you're going to be having difficulties with each other and what you decide on a daily basis. So being able to understand their opinion and then being able to understand your opinion is an important part of getting through those kinds of arguments.
Yeah, that's true. The Bible advises us to marry equally yoked, and it doesn't come only to belief. It also comes to your convictions, your personal convictions, and the things you want for yourself. If you don't know what is really important for yourself, you'll not be able to ask those questions to your partner before marriage. So actually, we're going into another area completely. We're going to how to date, and
we'll need
choose
a whole new
I
series
know.
of videos
It's
on
crazy.
that. But anyway, difference of opinion is probably the most common reason for the little things throughout the day. But there are 3 more that we came up with. The other reason that anyone often argues is a need or an expectation is not being met. And what that looks like is, I am needing something done, or I'm needing someone, needing Maria not to do something or to say something. I'm expecting her to act a certain way.
I learned at least that Daniel needs his space whenever he is editing. He needs...
Working.
Yeah, because he's a videographer. So, whenever Daniel is editing, I know he needs that space because he gets into such a different mode, this creative mode. He kind of gets into his world, and it's like kind of a bubble that he's in. And I literally think about it as a bubble. You're in a bubble. If I go close to you, it's gonna burst, and it's gonna be all over me. Seriously. So I learned after some time.
She's exaggerating, but the point is made.
Yeah, I learned to give him his space.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, you learned a lot of stuff about me. We can cut that part.
Mm-hmm. I learned that, you know, you value your cooking, and so like it's important to you to know that what you're cooking and the time that you're spending on it is valued. And so, you know, this is what we do, you know. When I'm working at my desk editing, she knows that I need that space, but she also knows that I need encouragement and that I need fed. She needs encouragement, and it's good for her to hear that her food is good. It's good to hear when
So
I
it's
tell her that.
Basically, an expectation I have.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so anytime that you have that expectation, and I don't do that, then you may not get,
No,
you
I
may
don't.
not say anything about it, but like
Yeah.
deep down, she'll be kind of hoping that I do that.
Yeah.
Or deep down,
and-
I'll be wishing that, you know, she would come over and encourage me or give me food, or deep down, I might want to tell her to back off whenever she's
Yeah.
entering into my bubble.
Usually, needs and expectations, they don't bring an argument right away. They pile up within you
Mm-hmm.
for days, maybe months. They usually burst out of you as an argument in such a different form
Mm-hmm.
that you don't even know where it's coming from. If you
Yeah.
look at the person and don't understand it, usually those unexplained reactions, they're usually from those unmet needs and unmet expectations,
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
and they can actually come out as frustration towards each
Mhm.
other because you don't feel fed and
Mhm.
emotionally fed and loved by your
Yeah.
partner.
And so the partner is actually like wondering why are they acting in this way, because they may have done something that's like, how could that cause you to react in such a way? But because their need was not met prior to that, or building up to that, they had such a hard time dealing with their emotions in that moment. And sometimes it's not just one person's need; sometimes it's both. So she may come to me with a need, and my need is to do something else. So, and we'll get into that.
So the third one is when a boundary is being violated. Whenever we talk about a need not met, it's something I am expecting from
Mhm.
you. But whenever it's a boundary being violated, everybody has their own boundaries, basically. Some people, for example, they don't tolerate whenever the other person talks loudly to them, like whenever they're yelling at them. It's interesting because an argument can start because a need is not being met. You start yelling and you're violating a boundary, so it kind of piles up on
Right.
that argument again. Whenever Daniel has his gear, like I don't know why it's always about videography because you're so particular about those stuff.
Yeah.
Like, so I like having the home like organized how I like, but
Mhm.
I don't touch his desk. I don't touch his desk because I tried doing that, and whenever he started asking me where is this and where is that, I would get so anxious because I was like, okay, if I lost an SD card from a client or something, it will be bad.
It will be
Like,
bad.
His space, his personal office space, it's like
Mm-hmm.
a temple.
It's a boundary.
It's a boundary.
The boundary is kind of like the line of respect. Is whenever we have plans for the evening or for the day, and one of us would invite somebody over to the house. Yeah.
Very good, actually, example, because I know of people that they actually come to me and telling me, Maria, like, my husband brings his buddies and they just stay and
Mhm.
talk, and I feel very weird and awkward.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're living with your spouse has a say whether that person needs to be at your home, at how many hours that person is at your home. If it's both of your friend, and you still have to like agree on what times is this person coming to your house.
Mhm.
And bringing someone over that your spouse doesn't agree can really overstep that boundary. They might not be very vocal about it at first, but it can definitely harm your relationship.
And the last of the reasons why we have an argument.
An insecurity trigger.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one. Yeah.
It's probably the deepest one because
Mm-hmm.
when you trigger an insecurity, you're pretty much diving into the thing that they hold the most dearly or, get the most offended about, or
Mm-hmm.
it's their greatest fear. And so, especially when you are arguing and you bring up the past, that will bring that argument into a whole new level. And you will find really quickly that whenever your arguments are based on someone's insecurity,
Mm-hmm.
they either shut up and shut down or they get very defensive.
Very defensive. This is actually insecurities in life. Honestly, my advice to anybody would be analyze your own insecurities, don't shove it down. Because knowing what your insecurities are can be so empowering. It can save your relationship. Because knowing and acknowledging you have an insecurity will actually make you remember that during an argument, and it will make you understand that you're reacting and being defensive towards that person because you have an insecurity, not because that person is trying to harm you. Although I'll say, have you ever heard that the person that's closest to you is the person that can harm you the most? That's also true. There are people that actually get closer to us, like our best friends, our spouse, and in many ways we can be the person that empowers each other the most. We can also be the person that brings us down the most. So whenever you get closer and closer in a relationship, you have to be mindful that people have those insecurities, and if you trigger them, you will encounter someone else. You will encounter the defensive version of the person. You will encounter someone mean because you're basically putting them into fight or flight mode to protect themselves.
Yeah. And like we were saying before, when you are in the middle of it, sometimes you don't know, who has what, what is yours based on a need or insecurity or boundary. It's hard to tell sometimes. So we gave you those 4 reasons so that you can identify your own easier. Whenever you are in an argument, there are some rules, very important rules. They're going to be broken, but the point is not to break them.
Yes, these are the rules we have. I would recommend everybody to stick to those because they're pretty basic, but I don't think people are actually following them.
Well, the thing is, whenever you set rules with a partner, it's hard because I feel like if I was to sit down and talk about a bunch of rules that we have to follow in an argument, then in an argument, because our opinions are different and we get to this mode of I'm not on your team, then it's going to be very hard to keep those rules.
Exactly, because you want to harm and you want to destroy and you want to show...
Not intentionally, but you end up doing that anyways.
That's why it's so important for you as an individual to have that rule for yourself. You say, I don't do that in any circumstance. I am deciding that because of who I am and my character.
And my integrity.
In my integrity. It doesn't matter what the other person does. I'm going to follow these rules. And whenever you put that responsibility on you rather on both of us, it's easier to keep those. And first of all, of those rules, never ever get physical.
Yeah.
Like, never raise your hand to your partner, no matter if you're a woman or a guy.
Unfortunately, a lot of young men grow up, or boys, just don't learn this, that you don't hit a woman.
But
she could hit me all day, but
it's
like
not gonna be the
for
same.
me to be upset or frustrated, angry, and to do anything physical is a violation of her boundaries.
Both parties should not ever, must not ever raise their hands towards each other. But I mean, if I'm playfully doing that, it's different.
The second rule that we have amongst ourselves is that we should not call our partner names. Just leave the language out of it. It's going to be hard because we live in a society where, language is our second nature. You use it for your pronouns and nouns and verbs and acronyms and everything. Like those 4-letter words, you know, pop out for every single thing. It devalues that person. It makes that person feel like they are having to defend themselves at a whole new level, and they feel like you are against them. It makes you. It makes them feel like, okay, Maria's not my name. This is my name now.
Yeah.
So who am I to you? You know.
Exactly, and it violates our individuality. It attacks our core, and that's horrible, especially if your spouse is addressing those words at you. So this should be like a no-brainer, a no-no in marriage.
The third rule that we have is that we should never ever leave the home. The goal is to never leave the room, but we should never leave the room until the argument is settled. One, I've learned that leaving the room can actually trigger an insecurity. Some people, you know, when they see their partner leaving the room, they feel, oh, my partner's leaving me, or my partner's given up on me. It just seems to bring a whole new thing, a whole new level to the argument, because now not only are you arguing about this and that, but now, like, the next time that you come into the room, or if you ever do, like, you're going to have those grudges that are just built by the literal walls. You're going to have mental, emotional walls, but now there's a physical wall between you.
That's so true. And actually, it's very good to remind yourself, even it's hard during an argument, but the further away you get from each other, more and more walls you build between each other, the harder it is to come back. The harder it is to soften those walls, to break those walls, and to soften each other's hearts. Like, it's so easy to destroy something, but it's so hard to build it all back up. So it's easy to just flee and go to the next bar.
Just think of the number of walls between you from your partner during an argument is the level of walls that you're building between each other. Number 4 is, do not go off and vent to all your friends and family about the argument and, you know, what your spouse did. You know, oh man, like, they did this and this and this, and, you know, made me do this, and blah, blah, blah. I know a lot of people tell their friends and their family, you know, if you ever get in an argument with your spouse or partner, you know, like, call me up, I'll be here for you. But,
which is a good thing to do whenever you're in an abusive, emotionally or physically relationship. Like, but basically call for help. That's a must. But we're talking about in a relationship that is healthy, non-abusive, but you're having those arguments, then don't try to find an ally that's going to discuss all the flaws of your partner just because you want to feel better. Like, that's a violation of privacy. That's a violation of marital respect.
Yeah. Number 5, the last one we have is that you shouldn't ever bring up the past and each other's insecurities during an argument. That's really tough because when you're in the midst of an argument, like, that's almost always, you know, if it's heated enough, that's going to come up. But the point is that you shouldn't be holding on to so many things about your spouse that they just come out one after another like a slideshow during an argument. Like, you did this and you don't ever do this with me, and I'm constantly doing this, and blah, 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 blah. You know, you're just reeling them out. And we have found that that is just completely ineffective when you're trying to solve an argument. That's just piling up more crap.
Because ideally, you already solved those other arguments, and you sealed them with forgiveness, so there's no point of bringing them back up because you already forgave each other. So you basically have to focus on solving what is going on right there and now. On the other hand, you always need to understand where the argument is stemming from, which is different because whenever you're trying to get to the core of the argument, you're self-analyzing. We're going to talk about it later on. But whenever you're trying to blame each other and bringing up the past, you're trying to fix on what the other did and didn't do to you and how they are to blame. That's a different mindset, basically.
I think everybody knows that, you know, things happened things, you did cuss, you did use the words, you did blame each other, you did leave the room, you may have left the house, you may have gone and vented to your friends and family, you may have gotten physical, hopefully you haven't, but
Hopefully.
those things may have happened. And so what is something that we should do if we have done that in the past?
Well, you cannot change the past. First, you have to understand that what we have is the future. We have the impact on our future.
And we can't meditate on the past and let the depression kind of rule our hearts.
Exactly, and let the feeling of, oh, it's all ruined, we're never going to have a healthy relationship. No, we will always have arguments, but honestly, what we argue about, it's something we don't even remember after some time. But we do remember how we were treated, and we do remember how we treat each other. We would advise to sit with your partner and have this open conversation in time of peace, so you're not in the middle of an argument, you're like in a good relationship phase. So sit down together and ask for forgiveness, specifically for all those times you called each other names, for all those times you left the room, for all those times you did something that you regret of. Think of the future and try to stick to those rules, internalize them into your core.
The whole point of having these rules is so you can preserve your marriage, preserve your relationship.
Exactly.
Like, you're going to get bruised, you're going to get cut, but we don't want it to be such a huge slash into our relationship that it's hard to carve over. Yeah, don't leave. Do not leave yet, because we have one more part of this book.
We have more to share with you, and now we're going to talk about the practical ways to soften an argument and solve an argument. Yes. So go on.
Yeah. Okay, so the first one that we've learned is that you can soften an argument by physical touch. Not talking about being physical. I'm talking about
this is being physical.
Physical touch, not like aggression.
Oh,
When we're having an argument, it just seems to soften her heart towards me, and it also helps me to feel more connected to her.
One of the practical ways you can do that is just holding hands. Like, you're having an argument, you're arguing with your partner, and you just do this. Hold hands. You will be surprised how that can change anything, like everything. Because you're talking about things that are damaging you and like bothering you, and things that are hurtful. And whenever you're holding hands like this, it just symbolizes to your bodies that you are friends and that you are connected no matter what. It gives each other a sense of security.
Yeah, I've witnessed myself holding her hands in the midst of an argument, and like whatever she says, like I'm more willing to hear it out, and also she's more willing to hear me out. It's kind of weird.
Which brings us to the next point. Listen to what the other has to say. Whenever we are arguing, a lot of times we're not trying to answer what the other is saying, we're trying to defend. We're trying to always find a counter argument to what the other is saying, instead of actually hearing what the other has to say and building on that to reach an agreement. We're fighting against each other, not getting to each other's team.
Right.
But whenever we start listening and actually being in tune with what the other is feeling, we get into their shoes and we soften things up as well.
It's hard to listen whenever you want to be understood yourself. Like, you have this point where you had your feelings that were hurt, and so you're trying to be heard and understood and sympathized with. Whenever you show the person that you are interested in what they're saying, then they're more likely to show their interest in you. But anyways, so the third thing that's very important to do is it's important to self-assess yourself, to understand what am I doing or saying, or what am I feeling, or what happened to get me to this place of saying what I'm saying or doing what I'm doing.
And one way you can do that is actually go back to what we were saying in the beginning and try to pinpoint is is an insecurity being triggered within me? Is a boundary being crossed? Or maybe it's an expectation or a need that I have that it's not being met. You think about what your inner self is doing and try to understand that, so that then you can tell your partner about it and say, wait, no, I'm not being defensive just because of what is happening right now, but when I was 6 years old, someone told me that I wasn't equipped for this, so now I'm feeling insecure in this area and I'm taking it down on you. So you're not actually the problem. My insecurity is. So you're basically putting the other person into your shoes, helping them to empathize with you, understanding that they're not the problem, they're not to blame, but they're on your team, and you're actually softening them towards you.
Yeah, and it's really cool whenever your partner can like understand what's going on enough to not even like apologize for what they're feeling, because sometimes we don't know why we're feeling the way that we feel, and so apologizing is not really solving the issue, but like understanding the core of what was going on, which is our fourth point, understanding the root cause and trying to work on understanding that together. That is what's going to bring you to an understanding between yourselves and work your way towards an apology.
That is so true, because our human mind is so filled with so many scars from our past, so many things that have been going on during the relationship, that if we don't deal with the core and we just shallow it out and just deal with what's happening right now, it will just surface again. It will surface over and over again. I'm not talking about bringing up the past things that the other wronged you. No, that's different. I'm talking about understanding what is triggering that specific thing that is going on.
Yeah, and that's helpful for you too, because when you can understand your past and your insecurities and your need, you've assessed, okay, you figured out, okay, you're feeling this way because this, you reacted because of this. When you're able to also know why they were doing what they were doing, why they crossed the boundary, what their needs were, what their opinion is, what they've done or experienced in the past, like that helps you to have a better perspective and understanding of them and grace on them. Yeah,
that's true.
To where you can work towards that physical touch. You can work towards the listening ear for each other, and eventually to an apology. Sometimes your partner is not strong enough to be the first one to do it. So
that's
whenever
true.
one of you does it, whenever one of you apologizes, it humbles the other one.
It really does.
And not only that, but it's important to express your understanding and apology, and to say, I forgive you. Because saying that, it's like a confirmation.
Exactly.
Whenever Maria says, I forgive you, like I feel like everything's taken care of, that we've gone through this together and we've figured it out, and that we're now able to move on, which was probably the last few words that we spoke before this video.
It's true. Sometimes things are more complicated than just having one cause of an argument. Sometimes it's even more complicated, so you have multiple variables, and the more you practice being mindful and aware, the easier it gets to solve those issues with less damage to your relationships.
And there's so much more in-depthness that we could get into.
That's true.
So that concludes our evaluation and explanation of how to solve arguments with your spouse.
And of course, this is not like a recipe. Just take this to your advantage, but you can ask us more questions in the comments below. Let us know what you thought about it, if this helped you in your relationship, and if those practical ways are actually helping you with your spouse and your partner.
I challenge you to actually, on the do's and don'ts, the rules that we have, I challenge you to come up with 5 of your own for yourself. And also we challenge you to implement at least one of these ways to soften the argument in your next argument with your partner or your spouse, and see what happens. You know, if your partner's not used to you having physical touch, or they're not a good receiver of physical touch being a love language, it might be kind of hard to have that as one of your softeners. But hopefully, if they are, or even if they aren't, you can work towards, you know, coming closer and, you know, sitting side by side and listening or something, and eventually getting to where you can hold their hand and look into their eyes. We both challenge you to try at least one of those and see how it
And
goes.
let us know how it went.
Let us know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. We invite you to watch our future videos when we have them.
Yeah, subscribe so you can follow us along in this
Yeah.
journey.
Yep. Number 4, don't go off and vent to all your friends or family
This is number
about
5.
no babe. Venting, and then is past insecurities. So we just talked about 1, 2, 3, leaving the home.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Wow, it's forever.
Yeah. Number 4.
Say, can I do my face first?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.